Welcome to the project Collaborative Global Initiatives. I feel truly honored and deeply grateful for the audience tuning in into this show today because we are going to experience the global nexus of communications in action. Collaborative Global Initiatives is a bridge that unites nations, organizations, and individuals' efforts worldwide to address critical issues such as climate change, poverty alleviation, inequality, good health, and well being. It aims to make the 17 United Nations Sustainable Development Goals attainable. By encouraging collaboration and resource sharing, these initiatives strive to develop sustainable solutions that benefit communities across borders. Through dialogue and partnership, we foster innovation, encourage cultural exchange, and create a more interconnected and resilient global society, whether through educational programs, environmental projects, or humanitarian efforts. Collaborative global initiatives highlight the strength of unity and the significance of working together for a brighter future. Our special guest, Elizabeth Gould, has the scenario of the Cultural Intelligence Show today. In today's show, we will go from work to wealth, linking John F. Kennedy's philosophy to Henry George's economic vision. Thank you, Elizabeth Gould, for sharing your wisdom with us. You're watching part one. Subscribe to our channel so you can be notified of our next episodes. The journey from conflict to prosperity is both complex and compelling, requiring a multifaceted approach and the collective efforts of communities, governments, and global organizations. History has shown that countries can indeed transition from periods of intense strife to times of economic growth and stability, but it is neither a quick nor easy path. Key to this transformation is the establishment of peace and security. Without a stable environment, economic activities cannot flourish. This often involves diplomatic negotiations, peace treaties, and sometimes international intervention to ensure that hostilities cease and communities can begin to rebuild. Once peace is achieved, attention can turn to rebuilding infrastructure and encouraging economic growth. This initiative involves not only repairing physical damage, but also the investment in quality education, the implementation of systems to eliminate poverty, and the promotion of all sustainable development goals. In essence, by empowering citizens with knowledge and resources, nations create a solid foundation for sustainable economic advancement. Furthermore, creating inclusive economic policies that promote equal opportunities for all citizens is crucial. This ensures that the benefits of growth are shared broadly, reducing inequalities that might otherwise show discord and hinder progress. Finally, fostering international partnership and collaborations can provide the necessary support and resources for a successful transition. By integrating into the global economy, nations can access new markets, attract foreign investment, and benefit from technological exchanges. While it might be difficult, the journey from conflict to prosperity is achievable and has been successfully undertaken by numerous nations. Through determination, careful planning, and a dedication to peace and inclusivity, societies can reshape their futures and establish a legacy of wealth and harmony. Today's episode: From Conflict to Prosperity, John F. Kennedy Jr., Henry George, and the Path to Justice. What happens when you combine a president renowned for his grand ideals with an economist dedicated to the single land value tax proposal? It is not a setup for a bad joke. Rather, it is an unexpectedly profound strategy for transforming conflict into wealth. John F. Kennedy famously stated, "Mankind put an end to war, or war will put an end to mankind." However, it is important to recognize that wars extend beyond physical weapons. They are also waged through inequality, greed, and systems that concentrate resources among a selective few. Does this sound familiar? Enter Henry George, the visionary, the guy who looked at the economy and said, "Yeah, we can fix this." Let's extend our warm welcome to our expert, Elizabeth Gould, who will share her personal journey and offer valuable insights on this important topic in a way that help us all connect the dots. We also welcome our audience and encourage you to engage in the comments. Your perspectives are valuable to us as well. Let's all contribute to this collaborative global initiative. Hello, Elizabeth Gould. Thank you so much for coming today. Please tell us a little bit about you. Where do you come from? And thank you for being with us today, sharing your wisdom.
Well, thank you for inviting me. It's really a pleasure and an honor to be here. I work with my husband, Paul Fitzgerald, and we actually got engaged way back in 1979 when the Soviet Union crossed the border in Afghanistan as journalists. It was a very big deal at the time. Journalists had been kicked out within the first month, and we ended up getting the first visa as independent journalists and went in for the networks and really experienced a very powerful understanding of narrative creation. You know, when you start working at the level of the CBS and the biggest geopolitical story in the world, President Carter called it the greatest threat to peace since the Second World War. So we ended up getting there in 1981 as the first journalist to see, since the invasion of 1979, December, and discovered, of course, it was very different than what the mainstream media was saying. Interestingly enough, they couldn't even get in. So it gives you an idea of how many of these stories are written. Anyway, eventually we learned that getting the opportunity to affect the mainstream narrative isn't that simple. You really just don't have the power to just change it. So eventually we asked ourselves the question, if we really can't change their narrative with our facts, because we even went back in 1983 and really, brought Roger Fisher of the Harvard Negotiation Project. So Paul and I decided by the end of 1987, after trying since 1981 to change the narrative, that we had to go off and do something else. And we ended up writing screenplays. And eventually, what happened in 1991 was that our 10-year-old daughter had a dream with Paul's deceased father.
Oh, wow.
And basically came with a messenger who was very unusual and impressive. And she had no idea who he was, but he told her he was 800 years old. And Paul, when he heard that, said, well, that was about the time that the Norman invasion of Ireland occurred. My family was involved with that. Maybe this is a message from my father to somehow go into this deep history. And that's what motivated him to do it. And by the end of 1991, this would have been September, Oliver Stone's film JFK came out, and we were doing all this deep research and had realized a lot of the motivations for JFK being such a controversial president in many ways could be connected to this long history that went back 1,000 years. And we wrote up this paper and we sent it to him. We said, we'd love to encourage you to make another film about JFK based on this old history that's fascinating and very necessary for people to understand. And he said, no, not really. I'm not interested in that. I am interested basically in your Afghanistan story. So we didn't think anything of it. We said, well, okay, at least he's interested in that. And we started to work on that. And about 2 years later, we ended up with a research book for the script on Afghanistan. We discovered a picture in there from the 19th century, and the picture ended up looking just like the man our daughter had described in her dream. He was wearing a certain kind of outfit and a plaid, and it had a certain hat, and it was all matching. And it was very unusual. And so we asked our daughter that afternoon when she came home from school, what do you think of this picture? And she said, that's the man from my dream. And it turned out that he was a very well-known historical man who went to Afghanistan in the 19th century as a mercenary and got very involved in all the politics and became actually the model, many claim, for Kipling's Man Who Would Be King, very well known. So again, it just gave us this sense of we're connecting to something and we're not quite sure where it's going to take us. Well, it ended up taking us to Love Field, basically,
Wow.
in Dallas.
Very interesting story, Elizabeth. So we're talking about the philosophy of when Liz says Jeff F. Kane, for the people that are watching this program, is referring to John F. Kennedy Jr. So she's gonna explain us a little bit more about what is like talking about this deeply rooted in justice, truth, and the pursuit of a better society. So, Liz, how does this his vision align with today's world?
Well, when you look at JFK's record, you really have to go back to when, he was a veteran of World War II. So he is a veteran, which means he had real war experience. And when he became a politician, first as a congressman, then as a senator, and eventually a president, he brought with him a profound and deep appreciation of the of the of the power of creating peace out of his knowledge of war. And there's a lot of evidence in so many things that he did. He also had a deep appreciation of colonialism, and that was a big issue for the JFK presidential time, was in trying to help the quote, the third world countries rise up and become independent. And he had many conversations with many world leaders. And so this is all part of the official record of all of his efforts. And so, and eventually it all led to a very famous speech he delivered at American University, June 10th, 1963, which became a profound speech, really giving people the mandate of how to create world peace. And it is so powerful that people today are still studying it, is still motivating people. We've been working with many people who are continuing on a monthly basis to listen to the speech again and to talk about it and to see how what he's recommending can actually help us bring forth the peace that we all want.
When I was studying at university, we were listening to some of the recordings of JFK, and he has this emphasis on love and unity and truth as a guidance for like social transformation. I like that. And I was thinking, how does the love field embody these ideals? Like, how can it inspire a collective shift towards this global peace that you're talking about?
Right. Well, when we got involved with this, as I mentioned, in the first case in 1991, the fulfillment really didn't emerge until 2023, when we had the opportunity to deliver a presentation at the Dallas Convention on JFK on November 22nd, 1963, and really deliver that history that we had actually tried to convince Oliver Stone to make into a film. And we ended up, we came in at Dallas-Fort Worth, and we never thought much about Love Field. Love Field was the airport that he actually landed in November 22nd. And he also departed in. So it is very much of a transition and all of us went through that with him. And we have definitely looked at this and said there has to be a way that we can pull forth something really useful and positive out of the sacrifice he made for all of us. And especially with the inspiration left for creating world peace. So when we ended up delivering the presentation and leaving through Love Field, we literally could feel there was something, there's something very real that we sensed about it. And we came back, and our publisher, Chris Milligan, who's been hosting a monthly talk about the JFK legacy, the JFK history, and all of these issues that I'm talking about right now. And we told Chris, we said, we we have to create over time. Initially we came back and just knew it was important, but over time it was like, we need to create a healing ceremony. There is a real need. There is a spiritual component to this that is almost hanging over. And we did discover that the people of Dallas are carrying a lot of sadness because so many people come with their sadness about what happened. So it seemed as if there was a desire to say it's time to lift the sadness part and to try to bring forth what his goals were for us and then activate them. And that also is where we connected with Henry George. That became the avenue through which we were made the realization that world peace is a great sounding idea, but there are things that you need in order to actually gain true world peace. And Henry George and the experts we've been talking to and bringing to our monthly meetings to lay out how to create an economy of justice. How do you create an economy that can bring forth the peace? Well, this is what we've been working with, and it really starts at a very local level, and it involves a way of understanding how land is valued and how taxes can be created out of understanding the inherent value of land and how we all need to share in that value and how to create a tax system that really creates a possibility of the ability to equally share appropriately, in the resources of the world. And it's been with us since the 19th century. It was phenomenally popular in the 19th century. In fact, we discovered something fantastic in our research into the Fitzgerald family. JFK's grandfather, Honey Fitzgerald, was the mayor of Boston in the early 20th century. He was a Georgist. He was promoting the Georgist solutions for Boston. That's how common it was in that era. Henry George himself died at the end of the 19th century, but his ideas were really very much moving forward. And there were those interests, of course, who decided along the way that they still wanted to try to create a world of imbalance, you might say, which was what Henry George really had discovered, was that as the United States progressed in huge development, he wondered why so much poverty was created at the same time. And that became his motivation. And he came up with a book, Poverty in Progress, that really exposed this realization of how to fix it. And that was the beauty of it. There was a way to fix it. And once you understood how to fix it, then, and that's what was going on, not just in the United States, but it was really spreading around the world. So, but we now need to bring it forth far more powerfully. In fact, an interesting story that I became aware of just recently is a very, very powerful entrepreneur who is very involved in the highest levels of politics and of the tech industry, named Peter Thiel, actually has been promoting quite recently the solutions for the great imbalance in the inability to create what they call affordable housing, and how the Henry George solution is one of the strongest ways to create true affordable housing that really not only creates it, but also helps to diminish the ability of the imbalance to be created in the first place. So these are all the efforts. And if someone at that level is promoting the idea of a solution like that, I think we who have been trying to do this should take advantage of an individual like that and really, I like to say we need to catch his coattails and move up the recognition ladder with him.
Exactly. Yeah, that's very interesting what you're saying. And also, I have a project in Colombia, South America, with Henry George, and we are studying him in Spanish. So I imagine other people are also studying him talking about Henry George's philosophy in different languages. And that's something that we can accomplish together. For example, this activity that we are doing right now is so important, and very few people know that they can do this. You don't need to have like so much expertise to get into these authors. We just need to get together, sit down, and start studying these authors.
Right.
Like you said, is this person is so important, and is saying that Henry George's philosophy can be a solution to banish poverty from the planet. Imagine that.
Yeah, well, I think that when you understand, this is again one of the important points about what causes homelessness, people need to understand is speculation. And what the Henry George land tax idea does is it actually discourages speculation. And the only people who really gain from speculation, and in many cases, are very, very people who hold land, do nothing with it, and then when the entire community develops, they gain all the benefit from it. That's why land speculation is so popular. That's why when you go into a big city, you'll see many parking lots, a little square, and you'll find out they don't pay any taxes at all. But if that land was sold,
Exactly.
okay, because of where it is, with no investment on the part of the owner of the land, that suddenly the value that's all around it is the gain of that individual. That's where the imbalance comes from. And so that's what's especially encouraging when you have someone who is so phenomenally wealthy, a billionaire level, who is saying we've got to create a way to rebalance that. That obviously is encouraging, definitely.
It's like creating a plan for a smart tax policy. It's like a solution that promotes stability and fairness for residents worldwide.
And I think the other thing that's very important for people to know, it's been well tested. This is not just a theory. Okay, there are many examples in this, especially the state of Pennsylvania, where this has been used to completely turn around many towns and cities that struggled for one reason or another. And that ended up in the case of, I think, Allentown, I believe, 5,000 shuttered buildings. They went through some kind of economic crisis. And by opening up to this land tax shift, which apparently the state of Pennsylvania allows you to do that. Not every state does yet. So that's part of the problem with the whole country. But when they were able to switch to the land tax, they were able to reduce the amount of shuttered buildings from 5,000 to hundreds within a couple of years. And that is really amazing. And they became improving local business and local communities, and the tax base is actually, in many cases, people who own land, who own just a house, okay, end up paying less taxes. It isn't that they pay more. And these are the things that are sometimes hard to believe until someone who really knows these things. And I'm not one of them. I am actually I am a learner, when it comes to Henry George, but I've become a huge advocate because I really believe our effort that my husband and I, Paul Fitzgerald, have been at in trying to promote world peace based on JFK's World Peace Plan is absolutely, we're absolutely convinced that it has to be married to economic justice, which is what Henry George's solutions will create.
Yeah, I'm also a learner, and I'm studying the case of Pittsburgh in Pennsylvania. I have read that they have a long history with the founders' plan for smart tax policy. So I'm learning from them.
Right.
So we can apply what can be applied. We need to kind of like adapt it to the different culture that you are going to work with. So it's something
exactly. Yes.
Promising.
Right.
Yeah, well, this time in television, in radio, in YouTube, it's just running fast. But I think I need to invite you to a second program so we can expand on all these subjects, because it's so important that we empower ourselves with knowledge And I think by reading these authors like John F. Kennedy, Henry George, Silvio Gesell, so many people that have this philosophy, and maybe it's like the solution that promotes this stability and fairness that we need worldwide. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, I think that we all can do something that is on our hands, and just empowering
Yeah.
ourselves with knowledge is a good start. But
Well, I like to say, you know, the first thing I think we all have to recognize is we have to put ourselves in our own story. And you know, and that sometimes is the, you know, the toughest thing to recognize. You say, well, you know, what is my story? Where do I begin? And that's exactly, you know, when I was describing, you know, our first adventure, you know, in Afghanistan, you know, completely transforming into this recognition. The story ended up becoming very personal to us through the Fitzgerald legacy, and that, you know, because that's my husband's legacy. And of course, we have children who, you know, are directly related to that legacy. And, you know, recognizing the purpose that we started with transformed into something we couldn't have imagined, but we just kept following it, and it kept talking to us and telling us to keep moving. And, you know, and then here we are talking to you about it,
yeah,
and
from
coming.
different
Oh,
from different
yeah,
corners of the world.
exactly. And but knowing that we have a common goal, and
Mhm.
uh, you know, that common goal is 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 reachable, but it's each one of us is planting it where we live. You know, not just you know, not just out there. So, and
Yeah,
that's where the Henry George, I think, part really comes in.
very interesting. Yes, and also I remember that just to kind of close this episode, I remember once I was reading something about John F. Kennedy, and he said like the work goes on, the cause endures, the hope still lives, and the dream shall never die.
Mm,
So,
absolutely. And I would like to add that, you know, I think dreams are real in the sense that they are your inspiration and your guide, and they come from you. So I think I totally agree with that sentiment.
yeah, it would be nice
JFK.
that we all could do like make resonate this
Yes,
with the message of peace
yes,
worldwide.
yes.
So how do you hope they inspire, like all these authors inspire any people to carry out the torch of peace in their lives? You said it has to start with ourselves. How you envision
Yeah. Well, you know, that I think that the, as I said about discovering your own story, I think is the challenge. I mean, one of the real advantages that I have had, you know, in being able to witness at a very up close level what happens when you're taken back into your own family history. Not every family has the ability to go back 1,000 years and have a written history about what happened. And that is one of the advantages I've been able to witness through Paul's family, not my own. I have, like most Americans or most people in the whole world, probably my history doesn't go back that far that I can really trace. You know, the records are long gone.
them?
So when you realize that we're living in a world where you know, the most powerful families in the world know their history, and one of those families was the Fitzgeralds. And what I learned was how the Fitzgeralds went from being a part of that world of the, you know, the sort of the elite world, and absolutely transformed from the Norman invaders of Ireland in the 12th century into literally dying for the Irish people in the 16th century. Okay, and literally choosing to die with the Irish people. And that is where the love comes from of the Irish people towards the Fitzgeralds. And I think that's what is literally part of what JFK brought, that legacy to the American people. And clearly, he's talking to everyone in the world. His picture is still up in so many homes around the world. okay, as a sacred inspiration. And I think that's what we have, that potential to really ignite, a real sense of the power. And again, between combining it with JFK's peace plan and Henry George's economic justice plan, get
Yeah.
them married.
Yeah, well, so we have this conversation in part number 2. So we can just set a time, and
Mhm.
then we can continue enjoying your company, your knowledge, your wisdom, because I have been learning a lot today, and I appreciate that. So I think that by doing this kind of conversations, we can extend this influence beyond
Yes.
any event. And
Well, I just like, oh, I
yeah, I
just want,
would like you to say one message for all of us before this program ends, and invite us, for
I,
example, to the next event you have.
I just wanted to quickly mention that we do have a website.
Mhm.
If people are interested in, the
Know more?
work we've done, the roundtables we've done, we have it all on a website called valediction.net. And it is filled with, all kinds of different aspects of our journey, including our memoir and our books.
Yeah, that would be great, so people can see what's the lasting impact that these
Mhm.
events can have on future generations, for example, in terms of creating more just peaceful
Yes,
world events.
yes.
But Liz, thank you so very much. It has been a pleasure for me to be here with you. I hope that
Thank you
the
too.
next
Yeah.
event, we're gonna continue talking about John F. Kennedy's philosophy of truth,
Mhm.
justice, love, and societal transformation. So trying
Mhm.
these ideas of getting together from any part of the world is gonna be
Mhm.
a powerful solution, I guess. And through this program that I have right now, it's called Global Nexus of Communications, which just bring people from anywhere, and we just
Mhm.
bring TV or radio or newspaper or YouTubers, and they can just come and see what they're doing, and we can just start supporting each other on these ideas. That's a good, let's say, activity that we can think of. But the part that you're doing right there with the Trine Day ceremony and all this stuff, I like it. I hope to be there next year.
Yeah. We will, we have to make it happen.
Yeah, I think we will. We will make it happen maybe in Spanish next year. I mean, this
Oh,
year. Now we're in
yeah.
2025. I'm still having a hard time to move from 2024 to 2025. Yeah, but yes, so well, it was a pleasure having you here, and please come back next time and we will
Okay,
continue talking.
very good.
Thank you so much for your time. I'm sending you healing has from here, and I'll see you next time. And thank you so much again.
And thank you.
Thank you, Lisa.
Okay.
Bye for now. To our lovely audience, I invite you to explore the topic with us. Share your thoughts in the chat about the importance of John F. Kennedy in the world. From your experience, perspective, and reality in your country, what actions do you consider effective to highlight the importance of John F. Kennedy and Henry George in early childhood education? Let's work together on some conclusions here. Type in the chat your thoughts and let us know your opinions. Once peace is achieved, attention can turn to rebuilding infrastructure and encouraging economic growth. This initiative involves not only repairing physical damage, but also the investment in quality education, the implementation of systems to eliminate poverty, and the promotion of all sustainable development goals. In essence, by empowering citizens with knowledge and resources, nations create a solid foundation for sustainable economic advancement. How many years of knowledge do we have left, and how many years of culture? This is Coming Soon with Brian Brown. Have you read Progress and Poverty by Henry George? This was another episode of Global Nexus of Comminucations. See you soon. Thank you, Elizabeth, and lovely audience. See you in part 2.